Hello, lighting class. So I'm going to show you really quick how you can make a lighting diagram in Illustrator. It's pretty easy. It's kind of intuitive. Hopefully, you have some experience in Illustrator for some of the classes you took. It's a lot like any other Adobe product in a lot of different ways, and I like it. It's pretty good. It'll standardize things for our documentation. It'll kind of make things a little easier for you to communicate with crew members in future. And I think most of all, it'll make it so that you can experiment in the studio, but as your experiments bear fruit, you can use your lighting diagram to recreate those conditions. You'll practice a lot. You'll experiment a lot. And I think what a good designer does is that they find things that work, and then they're able to recreate those things that worked in later projects. So it's kind of important to experiment. It's important to be creative. It's important to try new things, but it's just as important to be able to do those things again, or share those things with other folks. What you're seeing in front of you right now is the high key portrait, which might look familiar to you. We based it sort of on Platon's high key white backdrop kind of stuff. Um, we have two specular lights. We can call these Amaran lights pointing at a white screen. We have some cutters here that we've built out, those big dividers. We have our subject here. We have our camera here. We have a big old softbox with a big old bright aperture light pointing through it. We'll also want to make notes here that the height of this light is very high. We want to try to capture that loop lighting under the nose, and that these Amaran lights here are probably also at 100%, pointing at this backdrop, and probably kind of low. I kind of hope that makes sense. We'll also maybe want to make note that our subject here is standing and not sitting. These are kind of notes that you'll take in pre-production and through production, and then in post-production you will use those notes, those copious notes that hopefully you take to make a diagram just like this, or at least at least that's the hope. Um, I think too that looking at something like this, we're looking top down. We're looking at our studio from above. You can imagine that this is maybe something like Studio B, where we have a backdrop on one side, and then you place all of your equipment throughout the rest of the space. The door would be over here, but this is looking at it from the top down. That's tough for a lot of you, understandably. My generation, we looked at maps quite often to get from point A to point B in some cases. For you, you probably aren't quite as used to looking at a map. We used to have atlases in the glove boxes of our cars. So it's something that we kind of got used to doing. In your case, you're going to have to take a little bit of time to figure out what you're looking at here. And my suggestion to you is just to sit and look at it and figure it out, and then to practice it, to sort of say in studio, I put a light on this part of the studio pointing at this part of the studio, and this is what it looks like from the top. And so that will be, I don't know, 4 feet away from where I have this cutter here, and that'll be 1 foot away from where I have this person standing here. And then, 5 or 6 feet in front of that person, I will have the lens of my camera. Try to really just visualize it as much as you can. And if that's not natural to you at first, that's okay. You just keep trying. You just keep being rigorous with yourself and sort of figure it out. It's like riding a bike. You'll get it. You probably didn't get it the first time you tried to ride a bike, but you probably can now. And if you can't, that's okay. Maybe we can go ride a bike together at some point. I'm going to select all of this here and delete it. I'm going to select this here and delete it, and then this here and delete it. Hopefully you get something where you can kind of work on this backdrop. For other kinds of lighting diagrams, you could go into this backdrop here and say, oh, we used the black one, or we used a gray one. That's just right over here in your properties panel. If you don't see a properties panel over there, that's okay. Like with a bunch of other Adobe products, you can go to Window, and then you can find things like properties and layers and make sure that those things are selected. You might also think about your workspace, just like with other Adobe products. Like in Premiere, we have an audio workspace. and an assembly workspace. In our case, we'll be working on essentials. It's kind of where I'm going to stick out for this one. I'm going to go ahead and change this back to white because we're going to do high key, again, inspired by Platon. You'll notice over here that I have layers. I have one layer marked diagram, and that's kind of where I'm just going to put all of my pictures, right? We have in this artboard over here, in artboard number 2, we have all of these, starting points that we'll work from and we'll copy and paste from, and we'll kind of make different sizes, maybe some different shapes, and then we'll have a space just for text. On this text layer, I'm just going to select on this text layer, I'm actually going to put the title of my studio or of my diagram in here. I'm going to call it High Key Portrait. I'm going to make it nice and big, so I'm going to select it, and I think I want it to be somewhere over 24. Oh, let's do 36. What the heck? Let's make it nice and big, and we'll do 36. I'm going to bring that down a little bit. You could maybe think about putting it in the middle, but for me, I'm just going to left justify that for right now. I'm going to put another piece of text in there by saying that this is my white backdrop. I don't need this one to be quite so big. So I'm gonna go ahead and make this, let's say 18, and then I'm gonna just say a white backdrop, and then just make that right there. Really the idea here is that I'm gonna use my arrow keys to move that down a little bit, is to label things so that when I give this diagram to somebody, they should be able to put it somewhere. Oh, I can see I made a mistake. See, this white backdrop is in my diagram layer. Easy fix. I'm going to go ahead and Command X that, go to my text and Command V that, and there we go. I have it on my white backdrop. That's good. And that's on text. For right now, just so I don't accidentally do that again, I'm going to lock out my text layer and just work in my diagram layer here. I'm probably going to start the same way I start, the shoot. I'm going to start with my subject and figure out where to put my subject. So I'm going to select my subject. This might be when you get it, it might be grouped, which is perfectly fine because I can just grab it and move the whole thing over. But I don't want to lose it because especially if I have, some other subject in there. In this case, I just have one, but I might have two in the future. I'm going to hit Command C, Command V, and I'm going to put it pretty close to where I want it to be. I'm going to just zoom in a little bit, Command plus. In this case, I kind of want the shoulders to be facing the camera. And this, again, looking at it from the top, this is the top of your head. This is the shoulders of your subject, and this is the nose of your subject to kind of give us some indication of where the nose is. I'm going to move that nose so that it's facing forward. Maybe just the head too. I'm going to hold Shift and get the head. And then I'm just going to turn the head so it's facing forward. I'm going to come back a little bit. So now I kind of have my subject facing forward. If you feel like it too, you can right click on that and group that again so then we don't pull those shapes out. I should say too at this point that knowing the distance between your backdrop and your subject is important. You don't need to know right down to the centimeter, but I should know where to stick my subject in relation to the backdrop and the camera if you gave me this to work on. I'm going to go ahead and select on my camera, Command C, Command V, and I'm going to bring that guy down here. Maybe it was right about there, and I'm going to bring my subject a little bit farther out from that background. All right, again, these distances will mark later in text, but for right now, we're just gonna start roughing this out. Moving these around will be kind of the name of the game, hopefully based on your notes, hopefully based on the notes you took in pre-production and during production. Accuracy is key here. This isn't some hoop that I want you to jump through. This is a practice that I want you to do for every shoot you kind of ever do for the rest of your life. Especially if you discover something, if you make something that's really cool and you really like it, you should be able to recreate it. And doing this is the way to do that. You should reflect on things, and doing this is the way to do that. All right, so I've got my white backdrop, I've got my subject pointing straight at my camera. going to make my subject just a little bit bigger here. You can move your subject all around if you want to, make them really big. Holding on to shift will keep your aspect the same, your aspect ratio the same. There we go. That looks pretty good. All right, so then I'm going to take this Amaran looking light, copy, paste, and I'm going to put that guy right there, and I'm going to turn him a little bit. I'm going to make him a little bit bigger, and I'm just going to point him right at the backdrop. I'll probably want to note too how low to the ground or the altitude of that light. But for right now, again, I'm just kind of placing my lights in the place that I think they should go. I'm going to use my arrow key to bring that a little bit closer to the backdrop and a little bit this way. There we go. That's pretty good. I'm going to kind of do the same thing over here. All right. Okay. I'm going to turn this guy a little bit. I'm going to group that too. You'll notice that when I select on it, I just got the one box. I'm going to group this and turn it just a little bit more. All right, not too shabby. We're doing pretty good. I have my two background lights pointing at my backdrop, and then I'm going to go ahead and take my last light here, and that's this one, Command B, and this one is kind of my big light. This is the one that will be an aperture, in this case 300D, because it's a pretty bright light. I'm going to put it up kind of behind my camera here. Don't be afraid to hit Command Z. I hit Command Z all day long. It's okay to do it. It's better to hit Command Z than it is for you to keep going forward. So try to fix your issues right away. There we go. And then I'm going to put a nice big gridded softbox on there. Turn this around and holding on to shift. And I'm going to put that right here. All right. This one especially, I want to kind of mark where the height of that is, because the height of this really does kind of matter. It's very high up because I wanted there to be a loop under the nose of my subject. All right. We're doing pretty good here. I think that I want to just build out the negative fill that I put around my subject, and that is this one, Command C, Command V, and it was quite a bit bigger. I'll hold on to shift as I do that, and then I'm just going to rotate that around. I think it looks something like this. And again, this is looking at it from above. So this is one of those sort of negative fill, there, that looks pretty good, panels that we have in there that are linked by the plastic hooky kinds of things. And then I kind of built that around this subject. I used it to block some of the spill that was going from the background light up into the subject. And this is looking pretty decent. Like so far so good. I can see now that I have this big gridded softbox. I have a big aperture 300D light. I have my camera, presumably with something like a 55 to 70 millimeter focal length. And then I have my two negative fills on either side, building a house around my subject. I have my subject who's facing the camera. And then I have my two Amarans that are full power facing the white backdrop. This is essentially what my setup looks like for high key. I'm going to go ahead and lock down the diagram area here and unlock the text area. And this is when I'm going to start adding some of my textual information. For instance, I mentioned that about the camera. I can do the same thing with my diffuser here, with my negative fill, and with my Amarans back here. I hope this kind of makes sense to me. I'm going to put all to you, and I'm going to put all of that on my text layer. I'm even going to sort of include the distance between my backdrop and my subject here. I'm going to go to properties to make sure I can see that line I just made. I'm going to push it up by one stroke. I'm going to go back to my layers, and I'm going to say that the distance here Okay, so yeah, I think this looks okay so far. Again, I'm going to start filling out some more of these text boxes on my text layer, and I'm going to kind of continue through that. Once you've got it to be where you want it to be and you think it looks pretty good, according to all the notes that you took, you can go ahead and export it as a PNG. You go to File, Export As, and then what you're going to want to do is choose Artboards, Range, and then you want one. You want that first artboard. You can also rename it, probably renaming it something like Wheeler underscore high key underscore diagram would be a great thing to name it. That way it'll just save this artboard as your Wheeler high key diagram. No, don't name it Wheeler. Name it whatever your last name is. And then it won't save this artboard here, which just has your icons in it. If you have a different lighting situation, you might think about making this artboard wider, depending on what kind of lighting situation you're in. I can show you how to do that, and I can help you with that. But that would just be down here in your artboard layer. If you need to, for instance, change what one of these icons looks like, you can do that too. If I want this, again, to be a black background, I can just go ahead and make it black. If it's charcoal, I can make it charcoal. If this cutter is actually more of a bounce than a cutter, you can change that to be white too. You can make all of these changes to it. I think it's really nice that you can kind of make things, I don't know, make things closer to how it really was on set in Illustrator. It's kind of the reason to use Illustrator. Even my camera here, say if I used, I don't know, a flat fixed lens on it, and this one looks too small for me, I'm going to ungroup this, and then I'm going to just squeeze that in a little bit, and I can bring this in a little bit more, and I can change what the camera looks like. Don't change things too much. We want to keep things fairly standard between our shots, but you can go in and make some of these changes if you want to. Again, if you need to do something that's different or special, or diagram something that has, I don't know, say a computer lab in it, we could go in and start to make some of those shifts and changes to make it look more like your space. Just come to me and I can help you do that. Or you can figure it out too, just by changing your artboard here. You can even make new icons if you want to. We don't have one here for a computer lab or for a computer in a computer lab. You can tell that here, but you can make new shapes. I'm going to go ahead and delete all of this. I'm going to go to my diagram layer again. I'm going to lock out my text layer. You can make brand new shapes according to what your situation looks like. Let's talk about that though. If you need some help with things like that, that gets to be a little bit more complicated, but also kind of fun to figure out how to make some of these icons. These, of course, are just kind of stock icons, and I put these here for you to use, but we could make new ones if we wanted to, or take these and change those into something that's different. All right, best of luck. I hope that you enjoy doing this, and I hope that you end up doing this for every shoot you ever do. This can become a really nice archival piece for you going forward. If you came up with something in lighting class that you experimented with and you want to use it 10 years from now, this is how you do that. This is how you kind of show yourself how you can do this thing and repeat it. All right, talk soon. Thanks for watching.